And my husband called me that day. In fact, I share this from stage all the time. He says, Sharon, I've met a man today that has what you've been looking for. And I go, ladies, if your husband called you, he said, I've met a guy that has what you've been looking for. He said, okay, sounds a little kinky. Tell me more. He was right.
Leaning closer. This is your time. Hit record on. Your crooked lives. What's your story? Hey, say the words out loud. Mike and Scott gonna crack that crowd. What's your story? Hey, turn it up, let's go. Every voice, every scar, every road. What's your story? Mike and Scott. Let's talk.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the What's Your Story podcast. I'm Scott Leese. This is my good friend and co-host Mike Lindstrom, and we are here today
A legend.
with the most accomplished author that I've ever met.
And definitely on our podcast by a long shot.
29 books in
amazing.
29 years.
And that's basically one a year, basically, if you count back to her first book.
Yeah.
That's one a year.
The co-author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yep.
And co-author of this new book called Old Wealth, New Wealth, True Wealth, Beyond Dollars, the New Currency of Legacy.
Yeah.
Co-authored with Nathan Barcachi.
Barcachi?
I'll have Sharon
Yeah.
Lechter, who is here. She's the author. And our special guest say she can correct me. I'm butchering Nathan's name, but welcome to the show.
Thank
Sharon,
you so
thanks for
much.
coming.
I'm delighted to be
Yeah.
with you
Yeah.
guys.
I left out the part where you're also 5-time New York Times best-selling author, public speaker, entrepreneur, all these things. So I don't know where you
You
want
probably have so much going on in your life these
where
days.
do you
That's
want to
why.
begin?
I've been around a long time.
But we always want to hear from people. How'd you get going? What's your story? So we kind of turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, both of you. My story is, it can be very long. I'll try and make it very short. I was raised in a lower middle class house, living between my mom's beauty shop and my dad's used car lot. My dad was career Navy. We're lower middle class, and I always aspired to be like my friends' parents who were CEOs and military officers. So I was the first generation in my family to go to college. Only woman in my accounting classes, only woman, one of the very first women who started in public accounting back in the mid-'70s. And a few years into that, I realized I wasn't in control of my life. I'm kind of a control freak. So it was like I didn't really like not being in control of my life. And I was working incredibly long hours. Successful, but still frustrated. And I had a client offer me to leave public accounting with him to start to really, he was acquiring a company that was in bankruptcy to acquire the net operating loss carry forward. So I had a chance to own a piece of the rock.
Nice.
And that started my entrepreneurial journey. But fast forward, as I had the opportunity to meet my husband. We're in our 46th year together this year.
Wow.
Had kids, continued as an entrepreneur. My oldest son went off to college here in 1992 and got into credit card debt. That was when I dedicated the rest of my life to financial literacy and financial education. So I started working with the school systems. My hair used to be red, it's now white. And really, everything I do is to support people in finding what they need to do to create wealth, because I was given the gift of having parents who talked to me about money at the dinner table. They talked about assets. They talked about cash flow. And I realized when I got out into the real world how few people understood money. And we're taught to chase paychecks. We're taught to exchange time for money. And that is a huge mistake. We need to spend our time buying, building, and creating income-producing assets. That is the destiny for wealth. And so that's been my mantra since December of 92 when my son came home from college. And to today, I'm as passionate about it today.
And you grew up where?
In Orlando,
In
Florida.
Orlando, Florida.
Yeah, I graduated from high school the year Disney opened, so it was a different Orlando that I grew up.
One thing that is interesting when you're telling that story is you said you came up in a low middle class kind of environment. I don't know that many people that grew up in that kind of environment, that conversations about money and accruing assets and things like that were part of the normal dialogue at the dinner table and whatnot. That feels like a little bit of a unique thing.
It was, and that's what I realized how unique it was when I got out into the real world. Because my dad had real estate rental properties that I had to go clean out bathrooms between tenants. So I say I've been a real estate investor since I was 10. He had orange groves, and he'd say, Sharon, the oranges give me cash flow every year, but that land is going to appreciate, and that land is now SeaWorld in Orlando.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
So those kind of lessons were just part of everyday conversation. And if he wanted something, he figured out a way to create the income to get what he wanted. And so he never had a scarcity mindset, even though we didn't have a lot when I was young. But he had a lot when he died because he
was
followed the
aspirational.
principle.
Yeah.
He followed the principles that he taught me. And everything was an asset. Everything was income generating.
So 29 years ago, you said we're celebrating a 29-year anniversary of the book. So Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I've read the book. I know a little bit about the story. I'd love to hear what led up to that, like the 1 or 2 years before you come together and say, we need to write this. Because there's two very powerful people coming together with their own stories to write this book. Tell us about the lead up to before the book became the book.
Certainly. Appreciate the question. Well, Robert Kiyosaki had an idea for a board game, and he found out the best IP attorney, the best licensing attorney in the world was named Michael Lechter. So he went to meet my husband at his office on the top floor, downtown Phoenix, in his flip-flops and Bermuda shorts with this idea for a board game drawn out on a piece of paper. And my husband called me that day. In fact, I share this from stage all the time. He says, Sharon, I've met a man today that has what you've been looking for. And I go, ladies, if your husband called you, he said, I met a guy that has what you've been looking for. I said, okay, sounds a little kinky. Tell me more. And because I was already working with the school systems and already teaching the importance of assets, he was right. When I went to the beta test, I was the only one that got out of the rat race. I don't know if you're familiar with the cash flow game, but I was the only one that got out of it, but I loved it. In fact, I got there and there were butcher block paper drawn with crayons, and the playing pieces were different caliber bullets. Great first impression. But I loved the concept. I loved what the game was teaching. And so I just volunteered because before this, I had just sold a company with the inventor of the Talking Children's book. And we took that from 1987 to 1991 and made it global impact on distributing. We were in 100 countries very quickly. And I learned the importance of publications, of licensing, distribution. And because it was at a time when kids had no electronics, so hard to imagine. It's 1987. Kids had no screens, believe it or not, dinosaur days. So we had this electronic product, and we said, how can we get parents to trust us? And so we did deals with little companies like Disney, Warner Brothers, Sesame Street, Marvel Comics, and it allowed us to really explode the product around the globe because parents trusted those brands, and therefore they trusted us. So it was very exciting to see kids excited to read again. Yeah. And so that was wonderful. And we sold that company and moved here in 1991. So fast forward, when I met Robert in 96, I still had those contacts and those relationships. So I said, I'd like to help you commercialize the game. And during that process, he told me he wanted to charge $200 for the game. 1996.
Wow.
Pretty pricey for a board game, Robert. I said, maybe you should write a brochure about your philosophy. And that's when he asked me to be his partner. We were equal partners, and we wrote the brochure for the board game, and that brochure was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. We never expected it to take on a life of its own.
Yeah.
We never expected to write more than one book. But in our 10-year partnership, we wrote 15 books together. We ended up in 110 countries, 51 languages. But yeah, Rich Dad, Poor Dad was actually written to sell the board game. The name of our company was Cashflow Technologies. We thought that was our brand.
Yeah.
The world said, no, your brand is Rich Dad. So
at the time when I read it, which I loved at the time, right when it came out, I read it. And Tony Robbins, who was my mentor at the time, coming out of law school, he would always tell us every year, you got to read this book, got to read this book. So that just became a staple. When we talk about the pillars of life, you have finances, a pillar, health and fitness. So back then we had Body for Life by Bill Phillips.
That
was the big one.
Of course.
Think about this.
Remember it well.
Yeah, this is the time frame. So, but Rich Dad, Poor Dad was the pillar of finance. So all of the coaches had to know this cold. But when it took off so quickly, and I don't know if you ever envisioned that. We're going to ask you that. What was it about it that was it the name? The content's amazing, but was it a book like that had never been put in such a simple term? Like, why did you all think, what is going on here? Like, why is this book taking off? What was your thoughts?
There's several factors. First of all, yes, the title, you immediately relate. My dad was a rich dad or my dad was a poor dad. So that certainly is very helpful. At the time, we talked to major publishers and they said, Sharon, it should be red, green, or black. That's what finance books. And I go, that's why we want purple. We want to stand out. We want to be different. And if you go into bookstores today, the few that are still around, you're going to see a lot of purple books because of the success of Rich Dad.
Yeah.
But it also, we had an incredible gift called the Amway organization that helped us really explode very quickly, because we're talking before Amazon,
Yeah.
before the internet.
Yes.
And so it was the old radios, right? You did a lot of radio promotion, a lot of television promotion. And I found a way to get books into the stores, which was very difficult at that time. And so what we did was we continued on relentlessly doing radio interviews.
Just endless promotion.
Yeah, endless promotion. But when we launched the game on April 8th, 1997, we had printed 1,000 copies of Rich Dad Poor Dad. We each put in $1,500 to print our 1,000 copies. And so we gave out to all our family and friends who came to the launch for the game and the book. And Robert had a friend in Austin that had a car wash. And so he wouldn't buy books from us, but he said, I'll put some out on consignment. So we sent 10 to 12 books down to this car wash. And so one guy, he picked it up and he read it. He happened to be a diamond in the Amway organization, Bill Galvin. And he called me one day out of the blue and said, I just read this book. It's fantastic. And I'm going, you did? And he says, yeah, how many do you have left? I go, about 950, because we'd given away probably 50 copies, right? And he said, I'll take them all. And he ended up getting the book into the hands of Dexter Yeager. And Dexter Yeager was one of the icons of the Amway organization. And so as a result, it allowed us to really, they took us on as kind of like the Amway Bible. And then we became the Bible for network marketing.
Oh, 100%.
Because I always kept them arm's length, because I didn't want to cut off all the other network marketing organizations. And it was interesting because that was never on our business plan. But our philosophy and what we teach in Rich Dad Poor Dad validates their industry, building systems, building passive income streams. And so it was a huge gift to us and allowed us to impact a lot more people very quickly.
Is your writing now, do you find the process easier, harder, the same? I was telling you briefly off camera, like I've written 3. And the first one I felt like just kind of flowed out of me. And the second and third were much harder for me. And I'm just like, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to write anymore. But I'm wondering, you've done this 29 times now. Is every one a completely different journey? Yes.
Every book has been different. Every of the 10 books, 15 books Robert and I did together, they were all different on how we wrote them. And so
some
I think,
easier, some harder.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Some books I write 6 weeks. Other take times 18 months before I'm ready to let go of it. So the philosophy is not what you want to write, but what the reader needs to see. What do they need to read? And so when you write, I say, don't think about it as writing. Think about it as talking to the reader. What's the message you want them to receive? And so every book, I'm not one of those that writes an hour a day. More power to you if you can. I go to the beach, usually San Diego, and I turn off everything. And I just, me and the water and my vision and my computer. And I immerse myself in writing for anywhere from 3 to 7 days. And then I walk away from it for a month or so. And then I come back and do it again.
Fresh set of eyes.
Yeah. And I read it and I go, that's really good. And then I'll read the next thing. I go, what was I thinking? So it allows me to come in with fresh eyes and work on it again until I get it to the point where I believe is sharing what I want to share.
I find the creative journey and process that everybody has to be super interesting because everybody's so different with it. I also cannot write X amount every single day.
No,
I can't do that. It's just, if it's not
flowing,
if it's not flowing, then I can't.
It's just so hard because you're constantly unplugging and replugging. And to me, for me personally, it's not coherent for me to do that. So
Was there any one that, outside of the obvious, is there any other books in there that you consider like, this is another one that was really, even it may not be as famous or picked up, but is there another book in there that you said, yes, this is the one I feel really strong about, whether it did well or not?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, give us a couple.
Outwitting the Devil with the Napoleon Hill Foundation. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but Think and Grow Rich, of course, I know you're familiar with. It came out in 1937, and it was a 25-year initiative by Napoleon Hill. And when he released it, he was frustrated because he said, I'm giving you the thesis of success, and people will not act on it because of fear. So he added that last chapter, The 6 Ghosts of Fear, in Think and Grow Rich. But he released it in 37, and in the summer of 38, he sat down And he would have used the word downloaded if it existed back then. But in a few short months, he wrote this manuscript called Outwitting the Devil. And his wife was working for the Presbyterian College, and she was afraid she was going to get fired, so she forbid it to be published. And it was locked away for 73 years.
Wow.
And he died in 1970. She died in the 90s. Her sister had the manuscript, and she died in 2012. And that's when it was given to the foundation. And so my first book with the foundation was called 3 Feet from Gold, which is also a great book.
Yeah.
And the month we released that, they called me and said, we have this manuscript. We don't know what to do with it. And I said, okay. They sent it to me, and I was probably the 4th or 5th person to see it. It literally was typed on a typewriter. And it had handwritten notes in the margin by Napoleon Hill. So it was like I was having this conversation with him. It was just, it gave me goosebumps. But I read and within 2 hours of reading, I said, this book has got to get out. And I believe there was a higher person at work. But God said, no, this isn't the right time for this book, because today is the right time. And it's life-changing. It talks about so few of us are in control of our own thoughts. Look at ourselves through the lenses of other people. We want to go with the flow. We don't want to cause waves. And then he talks about 98% of the population do not have control over their thoughts. There's the 2% that do, that will be able to stay away from the devil, right? And the book is actually a interrogation of the devil. So it's quite life-changing.
Is this still on? Can I go get it and buy it? I've not read it.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, today
It'll happen today.
it's been hugely successful. And I recommend young people read that first and then Think and Grow Rich, because it talks about how fear holds us back.
Yeah.
And then he goes through this process of understanding the ways you can get through the fear. Turn that fear into faith. Definiteness of purpose is the first step. Learning from adversity, right? But 2 of the most important ones are control of your environment. Who are you hanging out with? What are you listening to? What are you allowing in your brain? And then control of your time. Are you spending your time, or are you investing your time? And the audiobook is amazing. I went through 200 auditions for the Devil's Voice, and it really is like a radio drama. You guys,
So who is it?
You guys would love it.
Who was it?
Oh, I don't know his name. I'd have to look up his name, but it's really, I have people call, I had to pull off the side of the road here. And I hear everybody that they love it because it's such a impactful. You can feel it in your bones. That low.
Nailed the casting of it.
Yes, it was really crazy.
Well, it's interesting. I forgot about the whole network marketing tie-in. I do remember that from when I was with Robbins. I remember we'd be guest speakers at these network marketing events.
Yes.
Tony Robbins, top speaker, coming in. We'd do our 45-minute spiel, and we were trying to promote Tony's seminar, of course, right? Sales or firewalking or whatever was the time. And I remember walking in that year, and they had one of their diamond guys. It's a big rah-rah. The whole network marketing world's like that.
Sure.
And that's why they gravitate to the positive message.
High energy. Yeah.
Yeah, the guy was up there talking about, the question was, a car, is that an asset or a liability? And of course, everyone says, asset. Wrong. Let me tell you. And he's breaking down your book without even talking about it. Man, he's ripping off all Rich Dad, Poor Dad stuff, trying to act like he's the guy.
We actually allowed them to use our cash flow quadrant. The cash flow quadrant was the second book in the Rich Dad series. And I actually think it's more revolutionary in thinking than Rich Dad, Poor Dad even, because it talks about the ways we make money as an employee, self-employed person on the left side of the quadrant, which is what school teaches us.
Of course.
Yep.
And on the right side is B as a business owner, I as an investor. And a true business owner can walk away from his business and come back 6 months later and it's as strong. So it's not dependent on you as an owner. And your investments, of course, are your money working for you. And the right side is not taught in school. I taught. That's what I help people move from the left side to the right side of the quadrant. And you do that because of assets. My favorite word on earth, guys, assets.
Asset.
And my tagline, I'm known for around the world, assets are sexy, because they are. And the older you get, the sexier they become.
That's great. Tell us
So good.
about the new book a little bit. Old Wealth, New Wealth, True Wealth.
Certainly. Thank you very much.
How did you meet and get connected to Nathan?
Nathan
and what's the story?
Barcachi.
Barcachi.
Yes. He is 26. At 16 years ago, January 23rd, he was a nationally ranked cyclist. And he was on a road in New Mexico with his trainer, his coach, and a couple other people. And he was hit by a car going 50, 60 miles an hour, pronounced dead on the scene. He was in the hospital for several months in a coma, and then took him a long time to walk again. And in that process, he had a decision to make. I know many young people would just give up on life at that point because he was destined for the Olympics. As that was his vision. That was everything. He was going for the Olympics. And he actually read Rich Dad Poor Dad in the hospital, and he decided to take that drive, that energy, and put it towards building a financial house of real estate. And so at 25, he was multimillionaire in real estate. And when he achieved that, he wanted to become a speaker, wanted to share it with his generation. So he reached out to me, not expecting to get me, but he reached out to my office and we had a conversation, and then he became a client. And I wanted to help him create the platform that he could share. And so the book is Old Wealth, New Wealth, True Wealth.
Yeah.
And you think about old wealth is the slow and steady accumulation that we're basically taught. New wealth is the fast and easy overnight success, trying all the new gimmicks, right? Which there's an element in both that work. But true wealth is not just about achieving financial wealth, but is who you become in the process. And understanding that true wealth is a wealth of relationships, wealth of health, as well as financial wealth. And so it's just it's a parable about three brothers, who each represent one of those types of wealths. And it's just a lot of fun. It's set at my ranch, which is here in Arizona, in Young, Arizona. I do business retreats there several times a year. And he came to one of those retreats. And so he wrote the book as a parable about the learning from the retreat. And it's something that we've had such incredible feedback from people that have read it. We've got some incredible testimonials on the book. And it really opens people's eyes. I really think of Rich Dad Poor Dad changes the way people think about money.
Absolutely.
Old wealth, new wealth, true wealth changes the way people think about wealth.
Yeah, got it. Did he pitch you on the book idea, or did they just came together?
In my mentoring with him, he was one of my high-level mentoring clients.
Yeah.
And so we were saying, how can we get you to, let's establish that level of expertise, create your authority so you can use that to be able to start impacting your generation. And he's the one that came to me and asked me, would you co-author one? Which I've never really co-authored a book with a client before. My legacy is creating other legacies. I love lifting other people up and helping them create the plan for them and their own legacies. And so but because I was so passionate about what he'd done and the fact that it's kind of kicked off with Rich Dad Poor Dad, I said, okay, I'm going to do it, because he's a wonderful young man, very, very strong Christian, very strong family man, and very passionate about helping his generation succeed. So I wanted to help him as much as I could.
I was going to say, what would get Sharon Lechter's attention if I cold called you didn't know me from anybody, and I'm 24, 25 years old? So there's something there, whether it was the story, obviously you're flattered by the book, but there has to be something when you're in a mentor role or coach role that says, there's something about this one. Like, what
Was it
Well,
about the story,
Yeah.
the topic, or was it
Because I'm
about
sure
the
you get
person?
called a lot with
Well,
ideas.
let me tell you another story, because it's similar, actually, a couple of them. But this one, Tarek El Moussa, I'm sure you know who he is, Flipper. He's a business partner of mine. And he was coming here to launch a fund with Chris Hansen. And so we went to support it. And I'm at this VIP reception before the actual event launch. And Chris comes up and basically just stands in front of me and says, "You don't remember me, Sharon, but 20 years ago, you came to the University of Arizona and played cash flow with my class." I only did that once.
Wow.
And he says, because of that evening, I am now a multimillionaire in real estate.
Wow.
And so I decided to go full circle. I invested in this fund.
Yeah.
I said, we got to do this. We got to make this a story.
Yeah, that's
So,
great.
Power of the story.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing about Rich Dad Poor Dad, I think, is you could have told that as just a straight finance book, but you told it through a story. We grew up very middle class, Modesto, California. My dad worked at Procter & Gamble at a factory. Never missed games, but he always provided. But he didn't have, like maybe some of my other friends on the other side of town had the nicer clothes. And I remember I never looked at my dad as poor dad, not even close, because I know he worked his butt off. But there was definitely friendship groups where I would look, oh, that was so-and-so's dad. Oh, that's definitely so-and-so's dad. And it just made me go through the book differently. And they almost on point. I'm like, yep, his dad did that. Yep, his dad did that. Yeah, my dad did a little bit more of that. So it's not necessarily just the poor, it's the mindset. It's the yin and the yang of mindset around asset versus liability and all things. So the storytelling still continues to work for you, obviously.
Almost without exception, we are raised with scarcity mindsets. My dad was the exception. And I think because we grow up, we hear things like money doesn't grow on trees, pinch your pennies, save for a rainy day.
Oh, comes
I can't afford
PTSD
it.
from all of those phrases.
I
when was
can't
young.
afford it. Can you? And all those things are negative statements. It just shuts your brain down. You want
Yeah.
to turn off the lights and get under the covers. It's like it's not
save
done.
for a rainy day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
negative. And so we grow up hearing the money negative. No wonder we end up with a scarcity mindset. And that's the first thing that needs to change. There's a lot of financial educators out there that don't understand it starts up here.
Yeah.
We're in control of three things: our thoughts, our words, our actions.
Yeah.
And you can't change your actions if your thoughts don't change. So you have to work on the mindset. So I tell people, instead of saying I can't afford it, say how can I afford it?
Yeah.
You feel the difference? When you say how can I afford it, your brain opens, your subconscious goes to work, it engages your entrepreneurial spirit, and your subconscious can get very creative. And so it's a whole different environment. So I teach people all the time the power of the question. Allow yourself to engage yourself with questions. How can I do this?
Yeah.
I think I know the answer.
Yeah.
But I would assume that you encourage parents to talk about finances and financial literacy with their kids at, well, I don't know at what age. I've talked about money with my kids in ways that my parents never talked to me about. And I would hope that they're more financially intelligent than I was at that particular age. I know my youngest son, he's very entrepreneurial already. He's like buying golf clubs online and reselling them somewhere else and figuring out all this. I'm like, I didn't do any of that stuff
No.
back then.
No.
So I'm thinking then the first bit of responsibility then is potentially with the parent to work on that mindset.
Because we're
with
not
the child.
teaching it in school.
Right.
Still, which blows my mind.
Kids learn money habits from their parents. Hence the statement, the rich get richer, the poor get poorer, right? If we really want to level the playing field, we'll make sure we're teaching kids in school.
Yeah.
I'm actually the chairman of the K through 12 initiative for the Financial Literacy Task Force in Arizona. I work side by side with Treasurer Kimberly Yee. And when we started this initiative, there were like 2 states in the country that required personal finance for high school graduation. Then there were 8. We're now up to 30, all right? Not all of them have, probably only 18 of them have been implemented, but we now have 30 that have committed to a personal finance semester to be
great.
required for high school graduation. We still are working on Arizona. I got the law changed in 2012 so that it required personal finance, but it was embedded in an economics class, and it's not enough. So we've been back at the till every year trying to get this to Arizona. We must teach our kids
Why is
about
there so
money
much
in school.
resistance?
Yeah.
Why do you think there's so much resistance?
How political do you want to get?
I want the truth.
The truth is, it's the teachers' unions that preventing it. Yes, they've got a lot of power and the money, so they're the ones donating money to our legislators. And I've had legislators tell me they would vote in favor, and then in the day it came to it, they said, "Sorry, Sharon, I can't because I'll lose my funding." Okay,
Yeah.
I wish I'd had a recorder.
Yeah.
But the teachers want it, the students want it, the parents want it. It's the administration that doesn't want it.
And you've seen this for decades. My first entree point to this was about 5 years ago. I worked with Jerry Colangelo. He's Ambassadors of Compassion Director for the state of Arizona with me. And of course, Jerry's 86 to my 53. And he's always kind of giving me the old, you'll figure it out. You'll learn one day, right? So when I'm getting all gung-ho about our resiliency program, this is for mental health for kids who are at risk. Duh, well, who wouldn't want that? And that's when he gives me the old shoulder like, you keep going down your path, you're going to run into some resistance. And sure enough, you hear about teachers union funding and all those things. I'm like, how do you not want to teach these? It's not taught in your classroom. Resiliency, forgiveness, things that the kids should know. They should know, but they're not teaching.
Arizona has 13 semesters of electives. I go, just give me one.
Yeah.
Just one. And once a child knows how to make money on their own, there's no stopping them. Your son's on his way.
Yeah.
You might want to check out, I have a board game that I created for teens called Thrive Time for Teens. It's exceptional, teaching them about understanding wealth versus exchanging time for money, understanding real estate, stocks, businesses, passive versus active businesses. It's won all kinds of awards. It's called Thrive Time for Teens on my website.
Okay. So given where you're at in your life, you're still living to write. Where do you see yourself in the next chapter, the next 5 years? You're just going to keep writing every year? Is there another thing that you're working on? What's the next chapter look like?
I know I have one book that's been in my computer for 5 or 6 years that I have to finish. And it's a very personal book, but it's also very much about my philosophy of why not? Why not solve a problem, serve a need? Why not take the path less traveled? And also living in grace. I haven't figured out which title I'm going to use yet, but understanding that things happen to us, we can either allow it to keep us down or find a way to lift ourselves up. And so it's not necessarily a financial message. It is definitely a mindset message.
Yeah. Where in the world of professional development, outside of what like your parents taught you, you're saying a lot of the words that we know about abundance, like where did that come from?
In addition to learning from my parents, being in public accounting gave me the opportunity to see how businesses succeeded from the inside. But probably more importantly, it helped me see how businesses failed from the inside. And it gave me this knowledge of understanding money that most people didn't have. And I started writing when I was an accountant. I was writing training manuals and American Cancer Society. I was on the board. I was writing employee manuals, that type of thing. So I've always had a passion for writing. But I think that whole why not philosophy is what triggers the abundance mindset. And seeing how negativity and money are so debilitating that we have to flip the switch. We have to figure out first how to flip the mind switch. Again, your thoughts, your words, your actions. If you can't change your thoughts, even if you get successful, people are always afraid they're not going to make enough money. And then when they make it, they're afraid they're going to lose it because that fear is still there. So you have to find a way to turn that fear into faith and understand that you have the ability and not let. When it comes to money, you either control your money or it controls you. Nothing in between.
Yeah.
That's it. And so ask yourself, am I in control of my money or is my money in control of me?
Yeah. How often are you engaging these kind of one-on-one coaching? If somebody said, I want to hire you, I want you to be my coach, it doesn't matter if I'm a financial planner, I'm a budding business person or a CEO, do you take on clients in that regard or is it?
I do. I do. I limit it because
Doesn't say you only have so much capacity, I'm sure.
well, my highest priority because they're paying me big bucks to be one-on-one. So I step into their world. So there's a difference. I always share, there's a difference between a coach and a mentor, right? And we need both.
Yep.
But a coach keeps you accountable to a predetermined plan. They don't necessarily have to know everything about your industry, but they're there to keep you accountable. A mentor is someone who steps into your world and opens doors for you. They see more for you than you see for yourself. And that's a talent that I have. I see opportunities. I see the power of association, people that you need to connect with. And typically my clients don't have the same vision for themselves that I have for them. And so I keep about no more than 10, 15 clients a year.
Yeah.
So
Did you ever meet Robert Alderman? He passed away about 5 years ago. He was my mentor after I left Robbins. And Robert used to talk about this. He's like, Mike, and this is his model from way back. This is 1990s. He goes, I want to live in a van and be able to travel with my lovely wife. I want 20 clients pay me $1,000 a month. I want to work Tuesday through Friday and just sometimes get involved with my clients and have fun. That's my model. And I'm like, that's not too bad. Here I'm 26 years old thinking 200 grand at a basis point. You work 3 days a week. You only got 20 human beings you got to deal with. But it was that latter part that always stuck with me is every once in a while you're going to come across people that you work with that you can go have some fun with, all out writing a book, right? And doing those things. So that always stuck with me when Robert taught me that. So it sounds like you've had the good fortune of having many people come into your life that you could partner with like that.
yes. And one of the main things I teach is the power of association. So I'm delighted to get to know both of you because I always challenge everyone I speak to, whether it's my client or whether I'm speaking on an interview like this, when was the last time you did something for the first time? Now, I'm 72, so I look and I don't have as much runway ahead of me as I have behind me. But asking myself that question all the time, I think helps keep me younger than I would be if I didn't, because you're always experiencing something new. And your next opportunity is outside your comfort zone. So you have to step outside your comfort zone. You need to do something new. You need to meet new people. You need to go do new networking organizations, challenging yourself to do something that's maybe a little uncomfortable because opportunities are where it's uncomfortable. All right. And so many people want a guarantee.
Yep.
That probably won't work. And I go, let's change that probable word. What's possible? Not probable.
Yeah.
What's possible?
Yeah.
And so your next success may be walking through that next door. And I often tell people when I left Rich Dad, I made that decision to leave, not knowing what was in front of me. I thought Rich Dad was my legacy. And the guy upstairs decided, no, Sharon, there's more for you to do. And a few months later, I got the call from President Bush. So I served President Bush and Obama on the Presidential Advisory Council for Financial Literacy. What an incredible honor. I wouldn't have had that call had I stayed at Rich Dad. And then in March of '08, we know what was happening to the economy. That's when I got the call from the Napoleon Hill Foundation asking me to reinvigorate Napoleon Hill's teachings. Now, I had just helped build the world's largest personal finance brand, and now I'm asked to step into the world's largest personal development brand. I mean, bench myself. What an incredible opportunity. I wouldn't certainly have not had that call had I stayed at Rich Dad. And so I always challenge everybody, is there a door in your life you need to close for other doors of opportunity to open?
I want to ask a question about that. And it's what I get all the time from people is, how do I know when is the right time to open that door or to walk away from this and to open that other door? That's what people are asking me all the time in my business. They're kind of stuck. They have reasons to stay. They have reasons to go. They never really know when the right time is. How do you guide people to know when is the right time to go take on that new thing and challenge
Are you
themselves?
taking Tums or Rolaids on a regular basis? Are you
Do you have a Hepdose prescription?
Yeah.
I have a
So
back
are you
pocket.
sleeping well?
Yeah.
Do you feel proud of yourself? So another
That's a good
lesson
one.
from that dad that I
That's
just
an
told you
interesting
about.
one.
He asked me every night, Sharon, have you added value to somebody's life today? He's been gone 20 years, but I still ask myself that every night. Have I added value to somebody's life? And every time I spoke at Cardone Ventures this weekend, and people come up to me and go, oh my gosh, I'm here because of you. And it's, what an incredible injection that is. But I made the decision to leave because it was an uncomfortable environment for me. It was not a good environment. Rich Dad wouldn't have happened if it weren't for both of us. And 10 years into it, he wanted to go into franchising. It was a great model for us, but it was a bad model for the franchisees. And so I in good integrity, I said, I can't do this. And it was the height of our success. People thought I was crazy.
Yeah.
I thought I was crazy once in a while too. But
It was newsworthy at the time.
yeah.
I remember reading about it, and I'm like, without knowing you guys, just from afar, I'm like, what are they doing? Like, this is like an amazing partnership. But you never, as I'm a lawyer too by education, that everything happens behind closed doors are different.
Yeah.
It could be an agreement. It could be just people's venture in life. So I never knew what the whole story was, but I do remember that time frame when you were going through that in your
top
life.
10 stories of the decade, business divorce, but whatever. I'm very proud of Rich Dad, and I'm very proud of the role that I played, but I'm also very happy that I left when I did, because it was an unhealthy environment for me. I was taking Tums and Rolaids a lot. I wasn't sleeping well.
Yeah.
I never knew where my partner would call me and say, I love you. I'm kiss the ground you walk on, or the other one.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So it was manifesting itself in like physical ways as well. I think a lot of people overlook that or just think, oh, I have to power through.
that's
Yeah.
the
Kind
importance of this
Right.
book, because we talk about, I know I have a lot of friends who are billionaires, and many of them lost their health along the way, and they lost their families along the way.
Yeah.
In that sole pursuit of money. So they're sitting there with the money, and they're all alone and in bad shape.
And in bad shape.
And
potentially,
yeah.
That's a scary place.
And that's my message. And I come from a 46-year marriage, and every decision I make is not about money. It's about quality of life. And it's about, what do I want to bring into my life, and what contribution can I make to support and help other people?
Yeah. You know what I love about what you're doing is you're bridging gaps of generations, taking someone like me who read the book, people that are your contemporaries, down to, like, you're on stage with Grant Cardone, and he's got opinions. And he, whether you like that guy or not, he speaks his truth. He's very authentic about it. And he's real.
He does not mince his words.
Does not mince his words. He also built what he's built with a lot of the same principles.
Yes.
You can hear it in his language when he gets on Instagram talking about he'll stand in front of that house, his
He's
first
a
real
good
estate
friend.
deal.
He's a good friend.
But it's cool that you're influencing at that level, because there's going to be people in his audience that are 25 years old.
Yeah.
They're like, Sharon Lechter. Who's Sharon Lechter? Now they know who Sharon Lechter is.
Yeah, that was this weekend. Brandon Dawson, who is his partner in Cardone Ventures, I was his mentor when he was running the hearing aid company, and he attributes me as one of his strongest mentors. And so anytime I can show up, I do. He just needs to ask, and I'll be there to support him.
That's great. So do you do a lot of these, like podcasts? I mean, in Europe, you do a lot of podcasts?
Yeah.
Are you doing a lot of traditional media where you go on like Fox and Friends? Or
I do a lot of writing for national publications. I've been on Fox and Friends. I've been on all of them, but not recently. And I speak probably 4 times a month.
Yeah.
So in the next 4 weeks, I'm going to Puerto Rico and Nassau, Barbados, Dominican Republic, all for speaking gigs.
You still got the hustle in you.
Do you feel like the distribution channels that you have access to now make it just so much easier to get the message out? Or do you find the opposite, like everybody has these distribution channels now, so it's even harder for my message to get out?
That's a great question. That's a great question, because I was going down one train of thought until you asked the second part of that question. That you talk about national media, it's not as effective as it used to be. All right. We got to the New York Times bestseller with Rich Dad because we did media. Media is not as effective today as it was back then because of social media, because of the dissemination of information through the internet. And so it's very important to be where the audience is. So to be where your clients are. And so that's why I do a lot of high-level speaking. I do a lot of podcasts, because that's like-minded people are going to be follow you. You're going to have this mass of followers because they believe what you're saying. They want to learn from you. They want to train you. That's the audience that I look for. So that's why I do a lot of podcasts. I do a lot of speaking, because there's nothing more frustrating than having a room full of people that you know need to hear what you have to say, but they don't really want to hear it. Or they want to hear it, but they're not going to take any action.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's timing is everything. How many times have I heard something, but I didn't hear it?
Yeah.
It was a different time in my life. It could be a movie. It could be a book.
And a book, every time you read the same book, you see something different in it.
Before we get out of here, tell everybody, what do you have coming up? Is there an event that you have coming up you want to talk about? Obviously,
Promote.
tell everybody where they can find the book.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
Check out my website, sharonlechter.com. SharonLechter.com. That's where all of my books and products are. But it's also how you can reach out to me and talk about mentoring. I have a business retreat coming up next week, actually, at our ranch. Check out cherrycreeklodge.com. It's a little piece of heaven here in Young, Arizona. And we host retreats there for us. Other people host retreats there, and it's also open for you to bring your family and enjoy the Tonto National Forest, totally off the grid, all solar power. And it's a little piece of heaven. And
So good.
It's like when City Slickers meet Yellowstone.
Yeah.
That's
That's a
Cherry
good
Creek
description.
Lodge.
It's a good description.
Yes. But so I'm always looking for audiences that I can share my knowledge with and encourage and maybe kick them in the back side a little bit, because sometimes people need that.
Oh, yeah.
Cardone Ventures this weekend, where they just 400 people excited, jumping up and down. I gave them my private email, and I've had 20 emails, and it's like crazy. So teaching people to take action.
Take action.
In my book, 3 Feet from Gold, before we go, I just would like to share this with your audience. I released a personal success equation, and it's your passion plus your talent. All right. Passion, love what you do, what you love. In my case, passion is what makes you angry. Every time I get mad about something, I start another company. But passion plus talent, and my talent was years as a CPA, years in publishing. And most of us stop there because we think we have to do everything alone, right? But you take that formula and you put those together, and then you say times A, power of association. Who's on your team? Do you have people on your team who are strong where you are weak? Right? Who can open doors to other audiences for you? Power of association is the key to success. And then times A, taking action. How many times do we know what we're supposed to do? We just don't do it.
Yeah.
Love that.
And that's huge, taking action. But all of it is a plus F. And that F is faith. Faith in yourself, faith in what you're doing, faith that is needed and necessary, and faith that you will succeed. And 98% of us, that F is fear. That fear holds us back, keeps us from taking the action, keeps us from reaching out to new association, keeps us from highlighting our passion and our skill and serving more people. And so I teach people how to convert that fear into faith, how to find the right associations. And if you want more information about that, I have a gift. Go to personalsuccessequation.com. And it's an entire workbook to help you walk through your own personal success equation.
It's a great domain, too, by the way.
Yeah,
It's a great domain. This is an honor. Thank you so much. We
It's
put
my
this together in less than a month, thanks to mutual friend, to the people you hang around. That's
Power
what
of
you said.
association.
Power of association.
Yeah.
Absolutely
Yeah.
true. Thanks to Nick.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you to Sharon Lechter. Check out Old Wealth, New Wealth, True Wealth. Maybe this will be bestseller number 6.
I would bet on her.
Thanks, everybody. I'm Scott Leese. This is Mike Lindstrom. We'll see you next time on What's Your Story?
See ya.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, Mike Lindstrom here. Thanks for tuning in to What's Your Story with Mike and Scott. Make sure to hit the subscribe button for new episodes every Tuesday morning and check out a few of our previous episodes below. We'll see you next time.